And it's really in how your business evolves, right? When you start a business, a lot of times you're taught go to family and friends, talk about what you do, try to find some clients, probably sell some one-on-one services if you're a service-based agency, because that's the quickest way to get a sale and to start learning. And so that's very much a relationship-based sale, right? You are talking to people and they know someone, they introduce you, and there you go. You have a relationship-based sale. And then somehow we got in our heads that the next step is to go start building an email list and get 1,000 followers on Instagram and jump over to this mass marketing approach, which is a
Mm.
traffic based sale, right? And we think that those two things go hand in hand. Step one, sell to family and friends, see who your network knows. Then step two, start building a huge following. But when you break those down into strategies, they are completely different skill sets.
Yeah.
And when you start, right, that's a relationship based funnel. It's based off of who you know and how you interact with them, and frankly, what's a match for what you're selling. And then the traffic based funnel is a strategy for a different kind of business and a different kind of sale. So it doesn't make sense to jump from one to the other automatically. Instead, you want to think, what am I actually going to sell for the long term? And what kind of funnel makes sense? Because you can scale a relationship based funnel without jumping over to a bunch of direct marketing tactics.
Yeah, and I love how you said, like, you're going from selling to family to then mass marketing. There's no
Yeah,
in between. It's like, I'm gonna sell to my next door neighbor, and then I'm gonna put a billboard up. There are stages in between that, and I've definitely
exactly.
seen people do this, where it's like, you go to your hot leads first, the people who know you already, they trust you, they're like they're ready to buy from you no matter what, and then you're like, oh, now I need to grow my list. So I'm going to go completely cold. I'm going to go to the opposite end of that spectrum instead
Yep.
of like, what is the in between? So after you feel like you've tapped out those, friends and family, how do you move a little bit less warm? How do you go from hot to warm as opposed to hot to cold?
Yeah, and I think the first question you need to ask yourself is, what are you selling at that moment? And is it
Yeah.
appropriate for a relationship sale or for a traffic sale? Because then is your answer is, do I take a tiny step to scale my relationship efforts, or do I start, taking tiny steps to scale my traffic effort without immediately putting up the billboard, right? And the
Yeah.
answer for most of us is that we should scale our relationship side, because that allows us to then play a little bit in traffic later on, which we can talk about. But if the game is then to scale your relationship side, how do you move from family and friends to having a more robust network that can help you? It's starting to ask yourself some questions about who should be in that network.
Yeah.
Um, so again, the typical thing that we do is we meet some people and we set up a bunch of coffee chats, digital or in person, and kind of hope we get lucky, right? When in reality, the way to start scaling that is to start being really intentional and proactive about who you're meeting, as opposed to reactive about who happens to come into your space and hope that they're a match. You can be proactive about saying, these are the types of people that I want to meet. Here are good ways to meet them that will lead to an actual relationship instead of some sort of weird transactional thing that makes us feel gross about meeting people, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's build a real relationship and see where that can take us. And because then those people are going to know other people, and those people are going to know other people. And then before you know it, you're going to be interviewing 3 people in a month who all tell you to meet me, even though you've never heard of me because I have all of like 300 followers on Instagram, right? Um, but there's this web of people, it's like the behind the scenes web of people who I have interacted with.
Yes, and I love that visual of a web of people where you're connected to somebody who can connect you to somebody else who can connect you to somebody else. It doesn't mean that you have to be friends with every single person. It means that you have to have people who are willing to vouch for you. And I think it also means like you have to be clear about what it is that you're selling and who you're working with so that when people are engaging with somebody who could be a good fit for you, they're like, "Oh, do you know Michelle?"
Exactly. Exactly. It all comes with clarity, and it all comes with also having clarity. Then when you're clear with what you're selling, who you're selling it to, you can also be clear on who can help you do that thing. And again, you can go intentionally make relationships with people who will build the best web for you. This is all actually science. There's a science behind how networks are set up in an optimal way, and it's called strong ties and weak ties. And your strong ties are the people who are closest to you, but then your weak ties are all those people who you kind of know, right? You can have a conversation that's maybe beyond the weather, but that's about, but you don't know everything that's going on in their lives. And the thing that we screw up is we don't intentionally think about who our professional weak ties should be. Who are those people that you should invite in your life who are close enough to you that they're going to remember you and interact with you, but not so close to you that they know what you're doing all the time, which, by the way, frees them up to have close ties with other people. And that's how the web starts working. If you can tap into a bunch of different weak ties and maintain those relationships and have good, stable relationships with them, they will introduce you to all of their strong ties and their other weak ties. And then your web of influence grows.